Hey everyone, it's Greg from the Plastic Crap blog. Today I am joined with two people that I thought were particularly analytical for this discussion, and we're going to go through the process for I suppose newbies about how you actually go through building a list for Infinity. So today I'm joined by Lawrence, who runs the tournaments over in Preston.
Good day, Earthlings.
And Andrew, who is a
Just
prominent
the
member
introduction.
in the Edinburgh scene. So thanks for joining me, guys.
Right.
So this discussion first arisen from last week's video when I spoke to Steve Elkington about what it's like with Infinity being his first war game. And I suppose we were thinking that everyone has a process for list building, and it's only really through discussions do we learn sort of new tips and tricks on how we actually come up with this. So I would be really interested to understand how exactly you come up with lists for your tournament games, really.
Right.
I'm not
Good
sure who
luck.
wants to kick off.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, thank you for assuming that I have any kind of plan when I build a list.
Okay.
That's very nice of you. Um,
I join the club. I don't think anyone does.
yeah.
At least not scrubs who cover middle of the field.
Okay, I've made some notes, so I'll go first, and then you guys can fill the gaps in. How about that?
Oh, there you go.
So, obviously, first thing for me, points value. That's it. That's it. I don't look at the mission. I don't look at anything like that. I look at how many points I've got to play with.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'll look at the cool stuff that I want to put in. So there's usually like 2 or 3 things that are like cool stuff. Like, so for Ariadne, for me, Dog Warriors, love Dog Warriors. We'll have some of them, please. So open the list, Dog Warriors straight in. Anything else cool that I quite like the look of? Playing around with Vet Kazakhs at the moment, Vet Kazakh straight in. So it's kind of like quite.
So you're kind of building it around your flavour of the month.
Exactly. So the cool stuff straight in. Then I kind of go, right, I need a few guns. So I chuck a few HMGs in, something that's going to kill bigger stuff. And then hopefully by the end of the first bit, I've ended up with 3 or 4 kind of bigger distraction-y things to kind of worry the opponent about.
Do you always spend all your SWC?
Not at this point.
Okay.
But usually I'm around 5.5, something like that. I think it depends on what army you're building, doesn't it, really? Then, because obviously there's objectives, I chuck some specialists in. I'm always partial to a paramedic or a doctor, because the number of times I've like brought somebody back to life and he managed to kind of grab me an objective or something. Plus the fact, it's supplies, isn't it? Which is, one of those that comes up a lot. So paramedics are good for that. Then I chuck in some cheap bodies to kind of go up to about 300 points. And then I go, okay, looks all right. What are the missions that I'm actually trying to do? And then I kind of go, right, okay. So, and then I start playing around with it. So, I tweak a bit here, tweak a bit there. So what I'm trying to say is I do a very basic, broad outline of a list that I want to do, mainly based on cool stuff I want to do, a few guns, and a few specialists. And then I basically play around with that general kind of tweak depending on where I go for different missions and this, that, and the other.
Okay. Okay. I suppose when you're doing this and you're sort of tweaking for missions, you said about putting a few specialists in. How many are you comfortable with? Like, do you want to be able to do all classifieds, or what's your minimum?
No. Well, as an Ariadne, you generally don't get hackers anyway, so I don't need, that's generally me how I play. So I'm not bothered about doing all of them. I can always, secure an HVT or whatever.
Okay.
So I don't try and cover all of them, no. I cover usually 3, so a paramedic or a medic, an engineer of some description, and another like forward observer, probably. And then I try and get about 4, maybe 5, and the list's going to end up probably with about 15 orders, something like that is where I usually try and aim for.
Okay. Okay, so I suppose before maybe we'll hear a little bit from Andrew. Are there any key roles or key pieces that you cannot game without?
What a question. I think so. I think it's you need a couple of pieces that are going to stick around. There's all the whole glass cannon thing, isn't there? Where you've got I've been playing JSA recently, and you kind of go in and everybody just dies horribly everywhere. I always try and take something with 2 wounds, or effectively 2 wounds, or something that can get that crit hit that you're not expecting and still be okay. Something you can rely on. Something. Yeah, everything will be fine. This guy will still be there after this turn, sort of thing.
Okay.
I don't really have any other. There's not something I always take, or
Okay.
really.
Okay.
I'm quite, a bit of everything.
Okay.
This is the man. He once said, "How many HMGs is too many?" So I do feel like HMGs.
Well, that's a different thing though. That's more HMG. You get 4 shots, right? My dice are horrendous, always. So if I have 4 chances, then that's better than 2 chances with a sniper rifle or something like that. So
Okay.
that's more my luck with dice. I need the more shots, the better.
Okay. So it sounds like you'd always take a HMG in a list.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I would. Yeah. That is
Nice.
correct. If I'm having a heavy weapon, it'll almost certainly be an HMG.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's something I find myself leaning towards is either missile launchers or HMGs.
Missile launchers, Greg, is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, kind of. Yeah, commandos. Commandos.
Secure commandos. Always.
Yeah, surprised me.
Never heard of them. Never see them on the table. I hear they're terrible.
So, what about you, Andrew? Then, how do you start off when you're starting to build a list?
Well, if anyone who's played me, I only really like 10 orders. So maybe my brain is too small. I don't understand, but
you just go for the number of fingers you have. Is that
yeah,
right?
I like small amounts of stuff. So I think I find it much more easier to figure out what everything's doing. If I've got about 10 orders, or pretty much I'll try and come after the last ITS, was it ITS 9, when they introduced the thing where you don't receive what do you call it? You can't have your order pool drop by 2 if you're playing 10 orders. I pretty much stuck to 10 orders for the entirety of ITS 9, I think, and I'll probably try to stay the same in ITS 10. So for the most part, everything is a bit tankier or a bit more elite than, say, what Lawrence plays with, like 15 or 18 orders or something about that. For the most part, I'm worried about my meta is quite aggressive, so I'm quite a defensive player. So I have to mainly think about Rambo units and how I want to deal with them. That's pretty much the first thing that I think about is, can it get utterly dominated by something running at me in the first 5 seconds? And for the most part, I really like camo, and that's because you can't really deal with it. And if the Rambo unit wants to come and try and do an intuitive fire or something, or a discover shoot, then for the most part, I feel like I've already won, because they're wasting an extra order. And for the most part, I won't leave the camo units standing out in ARO positions. They'll just be on a rooftop somewhere or in a building. So they've already wasted more orders going in. So yeah, I really like camo. I really like infiltration, because I feel like every point that you put into infiltration allows you to... It's free. It's free movement, basically. Any mission that's got one of those terrible exclusion zones, hate it. I can just because nobody cares about it. Supplies is the best. You deploy all your stupid specialists around the the middle
Right next
points,
to it.
and then you're done. And then half of them are mines, and nobody knows what's going on. But yeah, as for like roughly what I think, when I'm making a list, it starts off with what sectorial am I, or what army am I playing? Am I playing vanilla? Am I playing the sectorial? And then also, why am I playing it? Am I playing it because there's awesome link teams? Am I playing it because I've got access to loads more AVA of a certain unit, or am I playing it simply because, as most of the time with vanilla or maybe something like Tunguska, you get access to specific new units, and then I build the list around whatever the hell that is. If I'm playing Shazvasti, which is my favorite army, the main bonus for them, in my opinion, is the AVA increases. So I'm not going to play. Like, there's no point playing Shazvasti if you're playing with two, like, no link teams, and you're playing with two Shrouded or two Malignos or something like that. You want to use the benefits of the army. So I go out there and I figure out what that is or what I think it is, probably wrong, and then make use of it. Maybe, like, for instance, in Combined Army, vanilla Combined Army, it would be the fact that you can use the G Mononica units and as your lieutenant, and then you've got a really nice strong lieutenant. So I think personally, if you're not taking one of them, pardon me, you better have a good reason for it, or or I don't know, you're just doing it wrong. Maybe you're better just play Borats, go do something useful. So I try to find the broken aspect, or the I don't know, the reason for doing it, and then at least take it down that route for a bit, and then you can experiment off the top of that.
Okay.
I think with sectorials, you have to look at the link team, don't you? I mean, as like you say, there's greater availability, but I think for link team, is the reason to do sectorials to some extent.
Yeah.
Yes.
You get that order efficiency, don't you?
Yeah.
I really hate 5-man link teams, so that basically just gets thrown out the window. I'm a special person. I would like to say that. I know I've got a beard. I know I'm drinking beer, and I know I don't like playing 5-man links. So I know I'm a hipster. But
so what don't you like about 5-man links? What is it? The area they take up on the table?
Yeah, it's the footprint. I think it's also got something to do with the way. I also don't like any orders greater than, or I have problems with orders greater than maybe 10 or, for real, 15 or something like that. 15 is my top limit.
Yeah, totally.
As soon as I get past that point, I find moving clumsy. So the only 5-man links I really use are disposable super aggro things. Like, I really like the Hungry link in Morats. Because I just run it down, and I don't have to worry about. I haven't put 150 points into it, and I haven't got like 120 points or something like that, and then I lose it because I'm an idiot and I made one misplay, or I put them all in an area and I expected them to never die to a speculative fire grenade somehow, and they all die, and then my entire flank goes down. I think it might be some way that I deploy or something like that, but I find that if I lose the link, I lose the game. So I tend to just stay away from 5-man links in general. I don't mind 3-man links because I can have maybe a 3-man link in a duo. I like having my resources spread across the table rather than, say, one of our players that plays military orders where you just all in on that link and you just push it and you ram it down the opponent's throat and you hope that they can't deal with it or they spend too much resources dealing with it. For me, that's in the true Shazvasti way. I like to split up, spread out, and just be really annoying and slippery, rather than really obvious. But if I have to do it, I want to be cheap and I want to be super effective. And you go in and you just hurt them and then laugh.
I think from my perspective, like, because I started out with Toha, so the first place for me was, what are my little link teams going to be? And then similarly, I've kind of taken that, so I never play any vanilla anymore. So like with JSA, my first thing is I'm building that 5-man, but it doesn't work for me because I can't. I like static link teams. I don't like moving them up because, like you say, they'll go up, but then my link team is built of really cheap Kaetsu, and they can't withstand moving that way. So I find link teams really, really difficult, but I still always seem to start there because, like Lawrence said, order efficiency. You've sort of got some basic level of synergy going to start with. So I'm not sure where
people
else
seem
I'd start.
to say you've got to have a 5-man link team. Funnily enough, when Andrew was saying that he doesn't like 5-man, I kind of quite like 2-3-man link teams. So we treat one as a core and the other one's your Harris team, and that's kind of, I quite like that, and you can kind of move around, get your extra burst. Really moving together, and you don't get the extra couple of guys. You have to kind of, you're right. You end up dragging one behind you, don't you, all the time, or something.
It's not too bad. Like I actually did that in my the last Northern Open. So I played Tunguska for the first time, and I took a core of what do you call them, Hollow Men, because with the core you can take the Stempler, the Ford Observer bot, so it makes it cheaper, and then you can take a Harris of them as well. So you end up with basically 6 heavy infantry, although Stempler's not really one. And they all have super jump, and you can do stupid stuff. I agree, Lawrence. I really like playing that way if it works out. Yeah. Especially when you're playing only 10 orders. I think if you've got 5 people on one side of the flank, and then you've got, for the most part, you also have to have a lieutenant. You have to have engineers, doctors, or something, or Ford observers and stuff as your last 5. So you don't want them doing anything really, because they can't really hold their flank. So if you've got all 5 in one place, I don't really know what you're doing with the other side. Whereas if you're taking your 3 and 3, you give up one of those profiles in your 10 order list. But now at least the 3 and 3 are split across the map, and they can kind of if one of them gets held up by some pinned down or something, probably by Joan, because Joan's an asshole, and then at least the other Harris or Core or something can move forward and shoot Joan off the table. And I don't have problems with Pano, I swear.
I suppose often when you see or you hear things on podcasts about list building, they always talk about covering all the ranges, which I think is pretty standard, but they also talk a considerable amount of synergy, and I kind of feel that's a little bit where this discussion is going. And I was having a think before we came on the chat about the type of synergies that you see, and I suppose we've got link teams because you get the automatic bonuses. If you've got a run and gun lieutenant, you almost always want a chain of command. Engineer with your tags, and then you've got the smoke and the MSV for smoke tricks links. But can you guys think of any other ways or synergies that you kind of have used and you think work well?
You got one, Lawrence? Or?
Yeah, I was going to say, you got your classic Nomad. Well, I've used it with Nomads, and your repeaters everywhere, hackers everywhere.
Okay.
I guess in Tunguska maybe you were doing something.
Yeah, just a bit.
Yeah, and you just lay. It's massive. It's all synergy, isn't it? And you basically try and lock the whole thing down from a hacking point of view. So any big stuff running around, or you've just totally got them locked down.
Yeah, I think hacking is one of the parts of the game that I never really turn to. If you've got a hacker in my list, it's usually because I want a TR bot.
Right. Oh yeah, that's not too bad. That's a good enough reason for taking one, at least.
And you've got the whole thing where you can boost them, haven't you? Or you can give them the marksmanship and stuff like that. So that's a synergy, isn't it? That's something you can.
Do you usually take a killer hacker or assault hacker, or do you take the SWC hit for the buffing of the QR drone, or the TR bot?
Yeah, I normally take. I've never taken a killer hacker. Funnily enough, I always take assault hackers or regular hackers.
Do you even have access to a killer hacker?
Yeah, the bandit, isn't it? Bandit in Nomads.
Oh right, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think. Anyway.
No, you've got tons if you play Nomads.
So, but I mean, I've not really gone that way. I kind of I always start to find when I'm hacking and things like that, and I kind of feel like I'm wasting orders a little bit. You know, if you're kind of boosting other things or you kind of setting things up, I kind of feel like I'm not moving anywhere. I'm not putting anybody under pressure as much. You know what I mean? I'm kind of like I've wasted an order, particularly if it was a 10 order list. You kind of like, do I want to spend those orders on buffing things when I can do something else with it? And that's why I've never did too much hacking. I think if you do it, you've got to go all in and do it.
Sure.
But for me personally, it's never been my thing. I always kind of feel I could be doing something else with this order. Do I really, am I spending it the best I can?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think hacking is more an ARO
Ariadna player.
Yeah, I think hacking is more of an ARO thing to me. You set up your network, and then as they come to you, you kind of take pot shots at them that way.
Sure. I think one of the things I'm particularly struggling with, so I guess we're almost talking about parts of the game that we don't necessarily prepare our lists for. If I leave a hacking out and I'm not thinking that way when I'm building, but I'm being forced to think about close combat when I'm doing my JSA list because I'm paying the points for it, but I'm also building a list that I don't really want to go into close combat because as an area for the game, you're going to get shot going in, and I think it's quite risky. I suppose, do you ever prepare anything for close combat?
Yeah.
Do you consider that when you're building your lists?
It depends on some of them. I mean, recently I've been attempting to play Tunguska, and if you don't think about the fact that if you're not trying to see close combat something, because Tunguska has, I think it's 2 units that have any decent close combat value, and that's their AD troop, Bryal Spectre, and the other one, the new Myrmidon guy.
Yeah.
And
Perseus.
Yeah, Perseus. I don't think that's good enough to start thinking about close combating things as a valid solution unless you're taking Raoul as some sort of tag killer. I mean, I think it's so super situational for most parts, so I don't really take it going, this guy's going to CC and I'm going to use him in this way. It's more, he's got that option. He's like a toolbox. But if you're not thinking about close combat, I think you've got real problems because Tunguska's main thing is the close combat is terrible. The pH values are terrible, especially for the Hollow Man. If you're not worried that someone, even a Mutiwa, or I don't know, maybe what do you call them, a Guangxi is going to run into your Hollow Man, your 35-point troop or something with a Spitfire, and he somehow lives because maybe he's got dogged or something, and he just holds the guy there for the foreseeable future. Then I think you're doing a disservice to your list. Like, you should be at least thinking, how do I deal with some CT troops?
I think sometimes you can't do anything about it, though, can you? It's, to me, close combat is something that happens, but you don't. You're almost better every time doing the shooting, aren't you?
Yeah.
You kind of. To me, I always think if they got into combat, not too bad. Yeah, it's kind of like I want to try and avoid these people getting into combat. But if these ones, then I can, like a dog warrior, I'm quite happy with that.
I was gonna say you've got dog warriors. Like,
exactly.
You're fine.
Perhaps Uxie taking on a tag, Yandy. That would be all right.
I've never heard of that, and would probably cry if that ever happened to me in a game versus Lawrence in a tournament. No
exactly.
idea.
Yeah, if that ever happened, that would be awful. But it's. But I remember you saying you were quite happy for me to just stand there and hacking away, again wasting orders perhaps on close combat when you can be spending it somewhere else.
I mean, I think I almost certainly only had 10 orders in that game. So I kind of... It comes down to another point that I'll maybe bring up later on, is when I build lists, I like to have them at least 2 different ways of attacking, like super hard aggression. And if someone wants to spend... I've had a couple of games now where some of my attacking pieces like the tags or whatever, just soak up so many orders. I can't remember how many he spent in that particular game, but I felt like it was worth it. Like I will lose that tag, I am fine, but the rest of my 9 orders has taken no damage.
Yeah.
So now I can maybe run around, deal with the dog warriors in some other way. I think is the main problem when I'm playing Lawrence.
Yeah. As they bounce off various other of the troops. That was basically what.
Aye.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think sometimes you do have to go and sort of have a think about, how am I going to deal with it? Camo troops. How am I going to deal with this sort of type of troop in general? What happens to infiltrators? What happens to, how do I respond to hacking?
I think about whether you're going to go first as well, or are you going to go like what happens on that very first roll.
Do you build your list with that in mind then? Thinking this is a turn 1 Alpha Strike list.
Yeah, but you've got to also think, what if the other guy goes first?
I mean, you won't be able to change your list depending on that because you've already picked your list by that point.
Yeah.
So
I kind of go in thinking, if I have to go second, can I cope with it?
Okay.
What's going to happen if they Alpha Strike against me? What have I got? How am I going to withstand that?
And what sort of things, Lawrence, would you choose to withstand an Alpha Strike? Like types of troops, what sort of things?
Running and hiding.
Okay.
Ariadne's. I like mine layers are brilliant.
Okay.
So, you kind of you've got your couple of camo markers out there, infiltrated in, like Andy was saying, right up there. One of them's a guy, the other one might not be. The number of people I've played and they don't even think, it might be a mine.
Right.
And then they go, oops. So I like them. And I was saying, like, things in camo are always good. Or like interlocking fire, it's more of a setup thing, isn't it? And kind of like, I don't know if it's really what's in your list, but make sure that everybody's kind of covering everybody else.
Okay.
So that somebody comes, one particular way, hopefully you can cover with 1 or 2 people that the way he's approaching.
Yeah, definitely.
Sometimes it's tough though. Sometimes you just have to take it. Recently, somebody with a, tag has just come marauding down the board and just everything bounces off. Can't do anything. You just have to wait till they run out of orders, and see what's left and hope, in a way, deployment-wise, that you've hidden enough things that you can then make an effective, advance on them in the next turn.
Yeah, definitely. One of the things I did want to raise with you guys is thinking, so how do you choose your lieutenants? Because we have to have one for it to be legal, and that's a big part of list building. So how do you make that decision?
I mean, for me, it's usually easy. In my notes actually here, it's one of the very first things I pick.
Is it?
I think that's mainly because I'm a combined army player, and for a combined army player, vanilla-wise anyway, you pick you have 2 options, and well, maybe 3 options will be. I mean, there's lots of options. Don't get me wrong, but for real, you're either playing with the Avatar if you want to go crazy, and otherwise you got the Anathematic and the Corrupted. There are some other ones, but don't do it. In my head, anyway. So you pick one of them, and I think I've maybe used them as a crutch a wee bit too much. Like when I play Nomads and stuff, again, I feel with Tunguska anyway, you only, I want to say, have actually 3 options. There might be 4. I can't remember. I think there's 4.
I think there's only 3. I've heard somebody talk about that.
Yeah, it's really limited. For me, the important parts are willpower. I play 10 orders, and looking back on tournaments and things like that, if I get first turn, I have a much easier time. Okay. And that's because if you're playing 10 orders versus 17 orders, and you get to go first, and you can wipe out maybe 5 of their dudes, I mean, that's probably a good turn. But if you can wipe out a bunch of their dudes, they're now down to 12 orders. now it's equal. It's a bit more like 12 versus 10. I can deal with that. If they get 17 orders versus your 10 orders, it doesn't matter if the dude's 5 points. He's going to come around the corner and he's going to jam you. I don't have problems with Matiwa. But, you know, someone will come around, they'll cause problems. With the amount of orders they've got, they're going to probably put a wound or two into your guys, and depending on whether you've taken fragile units or heavy, bulky dudes, it's wearing away at you or it's killing stuff. So, yeah, I find getting first turns really important.
Okay.
And then secondary is working out how you protect them. Whether or not you're taking the same profile twice and making people confused, which I think is probably more of a order spam thing when you're taking the the cheapest dude possible, or maybe you're playing combined army and you've got some stupid G Monarcha which helps you out, and you just want to make sure that the guy's not going to get isolated, but you don't really have to worry about that because they're all BTS 6 or something, or the only real problems come in when somebody's got Emily in her stupid 5-man link with EM grenades somewhere and goes, I'm just going to spend 10 orders throwing EM grenades at you. Yeah, that's a bit hard, but
Yeah, not good.
not that anyone's faced that recently.
No, hardly anybody.
But yeah, it's for me, lieutenants are, at least with combined army, it is the focus of the army.
Okay.
It's the thing that you can ram down someone's throat. If you're playing Morats, it's super easy. You don't care. You just take some stupid,
Totally.
aggressive lieutenant, a lieutenant, and you just charge them down.
Oh, that's great for that. They don't
Yeah.
care, do they?
Yeah.
They
Yeah. Shazvasti, you've got one option. Well, two options. I mean, you got loads of options, but yeah, for real, you've got two options, and you're taking either an Aswang, which is the Camo Lieutenant because it's super safe, or the Noctifer because it's the TO Camo Lieutenant. Just don't do what I've done in some games and totally forget to deploy them on the board. But it's yeah, and then there's just a bunch of, like, I find at least in 10 orders or maybe the lesser order count armies like Onyx, Vanilla, Combined Army, Shazvasti, Tunguska, you've really only got one option, maybe two options. And like for Tunguska, if the Interventor, if you're not taking it as the Interventor, it's because you want to try and fake it out. And you've got a good reason of someone that you may be taking the Security and you're going, yeah, it's totally the Interventor, please try and kill him. But for real, the Interventor is going to provide you with that extra order because he can use the left-hand order to buff the remotes that you have.
Yeah.
So if you've only got 10 orders, you want to use that left-hand order because it's an extra 10% on your efficiency.
Yeah.
But obviously it's going to be completely different when you're playing with 15 orders or 17 orders as Ariadna. So, and I have no experience of that. So.
Yeah, well, with Ariadna, there's chain of command is something you don't get very much of. So there's some interesting choices coming up with the new TAC units that have been talked about. So there's a couple of chain of commands in there. So now you start, I mean, I know some people have already used it, but the Vet Kazakh HMG.
Yeah.
Which, very, aggressive piece. Brilliant. But obviously you've not got any, somebody takes him out, and you're in loss of lieutenant.
Yeah.
But I think now with chain of command being there, obviously chain command is also a specialist. So you get a bit of a double whammy. It's, for Ariadna, I think it brings out some new interesting things, because for me, it's always been hide the lieutenant somewhere. It's been, one of the cheap guys at the back somewhere hiding, or, you can get your camo LTs and stuff, but they tend to cost extra special weapons cost, don't they? So I think that frees up a lot. I mean, each army seems to be getting chain of command now. I think that's if you're gonna go, go aggressive with your lieutenant.
Then you need
that now, I think you've got to do it. JSA have obviously, they've got good chain of command options. So you can go quite, usually quite aggressive there.
Yeah.
With a Domaru or something like that.
Go for the tag. 3 SWC.
Yeah, it's something I do want to try, having that dual tag list. I think could be hilarious. Okay, so some really good points there, guys. So, is there anything else you want to raise before we kind of round off? Anything else you maybe think about when you?
One of the other things I was thinking about is speed. So some of the missions is like get to the other side of the board. This is maybe a hint for you, Andy, on anything coming up in 2 weeks' time. But there's taken capture and protect. You've got to get to the edge of the enemy deployment zone, grab something, and then come back. You need something either, like we were saying, infiltration, you're already halfway across the board, or something like bikes or fast remotes, maybe people dropping in from the side, something like that.
Yeah.
That you're there fast, you know what I mean, or you're there safely with minimal orders being spent. So a lot of people have got bikes now, in their armies. You've got fast things. Anything that moves like 6 inches or more, I guess, is a bonus. Or you can have people coming in. You drop troops, things like that, which is something we've not talked about yet.
No.
But something that can get to the other side of the board, with few orders, safely.
And now with a lot less risk.
Yeah, exactly.
Pinpoint
well,
I think that's something
risk, right?
I always try and that because I when we were saying we were looking at the mission right at the start, is I look at it and go, right, hang on, how if I've got to get there, how am I going to get somebody there? Who's the person or people who are going to get there and do that for me?
Yeah.
What's my plan to get across the board? And then, pick somebody accordingly.
I agree. There's I've got in my notes that for the most part I don't actually worry about the mission. Most of them are generic and I don't want to say easy, but I mean easy enough for any model to achieve given the amount of given enough orders.
Yeah.
For instance, something like supplies. Yeah, it favors someone with infiltration, but say that guy dies through some hilarious mishap, you can get someone up and back. It's missions like, for instance, Capture and Protect that you were saying, Lawrence, or I can't remember the name of it, the one where you have to destroy the AC2.
Oh, yeah.
Looting and sabotaging, I think.
Yeah, that one. They're the missions where I will start with the idea of how do I do that?
Because that one particularly, you need somebody to hit it in close combat, don't you?
Yeah.
Or decharges, something like that. So, yeah, where are your decharges? Where are your guys coming from?
That's pretty much straight up where I would pick the army that I'm playing with, because, for instance, that specific tournament where we were playing the AC2 looting and sabotage mission, I had about 3 or 4 armies that I wanted to play because that was what I was feeling at the time. But when the missions come out, you don't want to play, say, Onyx. What have they got to deal to destroy the AC2? There's some way you might go, oh, I really want to play that, but at the same time, it's not going to do this 1 or 2 missions of the tournament. So why would you, if you got access to more than one anyway? Why would you play that particular army? And for me, that one, I just picked what I thought was which army I thought was more consistent. In this case, it was Morad's for just punching the AC2. It's very, very few missions though in Infinity where you have a very specific goal like that.
Yeah.
Even with the grid. Like the one where you've got to, capture and shoot the forward observe and capture or something. The many, many different objectives. Even them, you can blow them up with guns and stuff. It's just in particular looting and sabotage that you can only melee it. So you've got to have, if you're playing Druze, who the only person you've got is what do you call it? That Teo camo infiltrator dude. He's got explosive on his weapon, and like two hackers that have D charges and CC-13 or something terrible. And if you're playing Druze in a mission in a tournament where you've got that, you have to just expect to lose, or some miraculous happens and you gain D charges on a CC-19 guy or something. I don't even know if they have CC-19. You know, you just gotta hope that the hand of God comes down and rolls all ones or crits. They're all 10s.
Definitely. Any other points you've got, Andy, on your list?
There was one thing I was going to say for ARO unit pieces. I've got a real liking for Evo and bots.
Okay.
So in particular, the 8-point bots. I mean, for me they're called R drones, but for everyone else, I can't even remember them. But they've got mimetism and they've got flash pulses. So flash pulses at 24-inch range, so they cover half the board or something about that. The mimetism, if you look at it from a mathematical point of view, mimetism is stupid for the amount of points that you get, so just take it. And increasing the amount of burst is great, especially with the Evo. I want to say Overclock is the one that anything that's any bot that's a repeater gains burst 2 in the what do you call it, in the reactive turn. So I really like combining those two together. I think Lawrence was saying he was having maybe not problems, but he was facing tags running around doing whatever they wanted. You got 2 hackers that can even affect a tag, and all these bots. Some armies can have like 3 8-point order bots. The repeaters, obviously for the overclock, and they've got mimetism 2, burst 2 flash pulses. They're just annoying. Who wants to take those out? Like, no one. They're fantastic. They watch the sides of the board for your AD troops that are coming on. Probably not going to happen so much now that you can just drop in ITS 10 without placing the templates. God help us all. But yeah, they're just fantastic, and you can combine it with lots of various different things. Like Nomads have those fearback units. The name eludes me right now, but fearback remotes that also have,
is it?
Yeah, the Cyclones. Yeah, that was it. They're fantastic. And they've got climbing plus. You deploy them on the top of the highest building you can find, and now they can see the entire thing. They have their fearback, so they have 0 range after 32 inches, so they can fire for days. Or go for the Spitfire version, and they still have 0 range after 32, and so on, because they've got X visors, and they can put out a punch. People don't expect, like, burst 2 is great. It'll increase the odds by some stupid amount. Mimetism on top of that for your 8-point bots. For 8 points, it's just a steal. Never mind the repeater value for your hackers and things like that. And they move 6/6, so you can just start putting them in really annoying places. I screwed up in the last tournament, screwed up some guy's turn just because you put a 6/6 8-point order bot in front of all the heavy infantry link, but behind a building. Every time he was taking any sort of movement, as long as he doesn't have stealth, then he's just taking AOs, or if he shoots or something, and half of them got isolated. Like, it's 8 points.
Amazing.
It's great. I absolutely love them. And the other thing I was thinking of is I sometimes don't take either an engineer or a doctor. Well, either or. I take one, but I look at the. I mean, this is probably very specific to 10 orders. If you've got 15 or 17, you can afford to take both. But personally, if I'm taking 10, I'll just look at what benefits me the most. engineers can achieve more objectives, so they're in more cases better, and you can kind of fix people who are
It's more isolated, isn't there, than things around now?
yeah.
With the jammers and stuff.
You can really deal with things that feel like they've taken it away, and you can easily get to them. Whereas doctors and paramedics, I mean, I take 10 orders, so things tend to be a bit more expensive. So you tend to have 2 orders, 2 wounds on your models, and when they go down to 0, then buffing them up by 1 is not quite as valuable as, say, the engineer that can take your tags and recover wound when they just take 1 wound, or they can take them all the way to their max wounds. So I tend to take engineers more than I do doctors, but that also fits into Combined Army, where they have Dr. Worm, who's a god, who can do both at the same time, or even Turhat with the bioengineers.
Yeah.
If you can fit both into one profile in the land of 10 orders, that's king, in my opinion. But when you've got Tunguska and you've only got 10 orders to play with, then maybe you don't want to take a Dactari and your Clockmaker. You want to just take the Clockmaker and say, fine, if my 3 people with wounds die, I have to take it. And it gives you quite clear ideas of what you want to do when you draw your cards. If you get that, what's it called? The doctor or the paramedic ones.
Yeah.
Like Doctor the HVT, you just immediately discard it. I'll take the other one. Because, yeah, in some ways that's quite good. In other ways, yeah, sometimes you lose. But for the most part, mathematically, that's going to happen a very small percentage of the time.
Cool. Well, I think we'll probably wrap it up there if that's all right with you guys. I suppose some of those points are really, really useful for me to hear, even though I've been playing for a considerable amount of time, just about how other people do formulate their lists together. So thank you very much for coming on. And
no problem.
We'll catch you guys
I think there's
soon.
quite a lot to talk about, really. Isn't
Yeah, it's quite a big topic, I think.
Yeah. Maybe we can pick on a particular aspect of it and chat about that in the future.
Yeah, certainly. Sounds good.